The 3-in-1 Smart Car and IoT Learning Kit from SunFounder is a hands-on, all-included electronics kit that is perfect for anyone who wants to learn how to master the Arduino. The kit comes with an Arduino, 22 different sensors and modules, breadboards, jumper wires, and everything else you need to build a bunch of fun and interesting projects. Learn about robotics by building a remote-controlled smart car that can be controlled with an infrared remote controller, or drive on its own and avoid obstacles or follow a line. Learn about the Internet of Things with a project that lets you monitor the temperature, humidity, and light level of a room from an app on your smartphone. And build a plant monitor that tracks the temperature, humidity, light intensity, and soil moisture, and displays it on your smartphone so you can keep your plants watered remotely. It's a super cool kit, and I had lots of fun building all the projects in it. So click the link in the description below to order the kit from SunFounder. Switch bounce is a problem with almost all mechanical switches. When a switch bounces, the Arduino is momentarily unable to tell if the switch is open or closed, and that can introduce errors in your project. Debouncing can be done in either hardware or in the sketch. We'll take a look at both ways in this video, but first let's see what a bouncing switch looks like.
This is a count-up timer. Each time the button is pressed, the sketch should count up from 0 one digit at a time. This is a tactile push button. There's a pull-up resistor leading to the 5-volt pin, and a jumper wire leading to the input pin, pin 7. The other side of the button is connected to the ground pin. So when the button is pressed, the signal at pin 7 should go from high to low. And that'll trigger the sketch to count up one digit and print the count to the serial monitor. I'll show you the code for the sketch in a little bit, but for now just watch what happens when I press the button. See how it counts up multiple times with each button press? Each button press should only increase the count by 1, but it's going up multiple digits each time. This is caused by switch bouncing. In order for a microcontroller to detect when a switch is open or closed, it has to constantly listen to or pull the switch to see when the signal changes. When the button is pressed, the metal contacts inside the button don't make an instant electrical connection. The button might hit one side of the contacts, then the other side several times before making a reliable connection. There could also be bumps or dirt on the metal contacts that prevent a good contact right away. This causes the signal to bounce up and down before settling on a resting state. The bounces might only last for a few milliseconds, but the Arduino runs so fast that each one can be counted as a button press. If we look at the signal from the button on an oscilloscope, this is what a clean, non-bouncing signal would look like. The signal starts low at 0 volts, then goes high to 5 volts. And this is what a bouncing signal looks like. The signal starts low, but bounces up and down between 0 and 5 volts before settling on 5 volts. The time scale here is on 1 millisecond per division, so this is happening very fast. And even though the bouncing only happens for a few milliseconds, it's still detected by the Arduino. There are a few different ways to fix switch bouncing. One way is with hardware, and another way involves adding some code to your sketch. First, let's see how to debounce switches with hardware. Then we'll see how to do it in a sketch. The easiest hardware solution is to place a capacitor across the terminals of the switch. Here I have a 1 microfarad electrolytic capacitor across the switch, with the negative terminal leading to the ground side of the switch. The capacitor works with a pull-up resistor to form an RC circuit. RC circuits take a brief amount of time to charge and discharge, and that smooths out the transition between low and high voltage states, which filters out the bounces. On an oscilloscope, the signal from a switch debounce with the capacitor looks like this. See how the signal is curved up like that? That line follows the charge curve of the capacitor. The size of the capacitor will affect the responsiveness of the switch. Larger capacitors take longer to charge, so it'll take longer for the switch to reset to its resting state. Smaller capacitors will make the switch more responsive, but may not filter out all of the bouncing. Let's see how this works on the button counter from earlier. I've inserted a 1 microfarad electrolytic capacitor across the switch. So it's working pretty well. It's not jumping up like it used to. The only problem with this method, though, is the curve in the low to high transition. Microcontrollers like to have really sharp transitions, so debouncing with only a capacitor might cause problems in some situations. Luckily, there's a better way to debounce that will keep the sharp transitions. To do that, we'll be using what's called a Schmitt trigger. Schmitt triggers are usually used to convert analog signals into digital signals, but they can also be used to debounce switches. A Schmitt trigger takes an analog signal as the input and outputs a digital one. When the input to the Schmitt trigger exceeds an upper voltage threshold, the digital output switches to high. The output doesn't switch low until the input signal falls below the lower voltage threshold. A Schmitt trigger will take that smooth curve created by the debouncing capacitor and turn it into a nice sharp edge. The Schmitt trigger I'll be using is the SN74HC14N from Texas Instruments. The SN74HC14N actually has 6 separate Schmitt triggers. The inputs are here, and the outputs are here. Here's the pin for VCC, and the pin for ground. Let's see how to use this in our button circuit from before. Since I need several power connections, I've run the 5-volt and ground wires from the Arduino to the power rails of the breadboard. The switch is wired the same way it was in the last circuit. You still need the pull-up resistor and capacitor across the switch. But instead of connecting the output of the switch pin to pin 7, it gets connected to the input of one of the Schmitt triggers. You can use any one of the Schmitt triggers, but I have it connected to the first one here. Then, the output of this Schmitt trigger gets connected to pin 7 of the Arduino. All of the unused inputs are connected to ground to prevent floating pins. The VCC pin of the chip connects to the positive power rail, and the ground pin gets connected to the ground rail. Okay, so I have everything wired up here. I'm going to use the same sketch we used before. Alright, so it's working. The switch doesn't seem to be bouncing at all. It looks like it works just as well as having a capacitor across the switch. But the important difference is now the edges of the high to low transitions are much sharper. Okay, now let's see how we can solve the bouncing problem with programming. Software debouncing has the advantage that no extra components are needed. But it does add complexity and increases the size of your program. You'll get the best results by debouncing switches with hardware. But let's look at how to do it in software anyway. In software debouncing, the program listens for the high to low transition of a button press. When the first transition occurs, a timer is started. If another high or low transition occurs within a short amount of time, it'll be ignored. First, let's take a look at how the button counter sketch works without software debouncing. This is the same button counter sketch we used before. At the top, we define the input pin, pin 7. Then we have a variable called counter, which will be used to hold the pin number printed to the serial monitor. Next, we have a variable called button state. This variable keeps track of the current voltage state of the button, either high or low. If the button is pressed, the button state variable will hold a low value. And when the button isn't pressed, it'll hold a high value. We also have a variable called last button state to hold the previous state of the button. Down in the setup function, we set the input pin as an input and initialize the serial monitor. In the loop function, we take a digital read from the input pin and store it in the button state variable. Then we have this if statement that says, if button state does not equal last button state. So in other words, if the button state has changed since the last time through the loop. If the button state is the same as the last button state, we know that nothing changed and the button wasn't pressed. But if the button state did change and the button was pressed, the program will enter this block of code where there's another if statement. This is a nested if statement. If button state equals low, then counter plus plus. So in other words, if the state of the button changed and the button state is low, then increment the counter variable by 1. Then we print the value of the counter variable to the serial monitor. At the end of the loop, we set the last button state variable equal to the button state variable. When we loop back up to the top, we digital read the input pin again and save that as the button state. If the button state is changed, the program will enter the if statement, increment the counter, and print it to the serial monitor. If not, it just skips over the if statement and loops around, waiting for the button state to change. Now let's see what this sketch looks like with some software debouncing added. To add debouncing to the sketch, we need to start a timer when the first input signal change occurs. If the signal bounces within a certain amount of time, it'll be ignored. Only if the signal change persists for a set amount of time will it be counted as a button press. For example, if the signal goes high 3 times within 50 milliseconds, the sketch will ignore it and only count the signal after 50 milliseconds. Up at the top of the sketch, we have the same variables we declared in the previous sketch. We just need to add a few more variables for debouncing. The first variable, current button state, will hold the reading from the input pin, instead of the button state variable like we saw in the last sketch. The last debounce time variable will store the time after the initial signal change is detected. The debounce delay variable sets the length of time in milliseconds that signal bounces should be ignored. The setup function is the same as in the sketch without debouncing. In the loop function, we take a reading from the input pin and store it in the current button state variable. Then we get to an if statement that asks, if the current button state is not equal to the last button state, enter this block. So if the input signal has changed since the last time through the loop, it will enter the if statement. Inside here we have last debounce time equals millis. The milliseconds function outputs the number of milliseconds that have passed since the Arduino was turned on. So this line will store the time of the first input signal change in the last debounce time variable. Then we get to another if statement. This statement says, if the current time minus the last debounce time is greater than the debounce delay, enter the if statement. The milliseconds function is constantly increasing. But the last debounce time is the time when the initial signal change occurred. So millis minus last debounce time is the number of milliseconds from the first signal change to the next one. If that is less than the debounce delay, this block will get skipped over. If it is greater than the debounce delay, the code in here, the code that increments the counter, will get executed. For example, say we press the button and have a signal bounce that lasts for 5 milliseconds. The last button state was high, and the current button state is low. So the current button state and the last button state are not equal. So the program enters here. Say 10,000 milliseconds have passed since the Arduino was turned on. The milliseconds function outputs 10,000, and that's stored in the last debounce time variable. Down here, milliseconds is still 10,000, and last debounce time is 10,000, so this is 0. 0 is not greater than 50, so this is skipped. At the end of the loop, the last button state is set equal to the current button state. The signal is still low since this is happening very fast. The loop cycles through multiple times in 1 millisecond. Going back to the top, the input pin is still low, so the current button state is still low. So current button state is equal to last button state, and this if statement is skipped. Now say only 1 milliseconds has passed. This equals 10,001 minus 10,000, which is 1, and not greater than 50, so this is skipped as well. This loops around and around. When the 5 milliseconds passes and the bounce is over, the reading at the input pin is now high again, so high value is stored in the current button state. Therefore, current button state does not equal last button state, so the program enters this block, and the timer is reset. It's only until a signal stays low for greater than 50 milliseconds that the program will enter this block. In here we just have the code that increments the counter and prints the result to the serial monitor, as we saw in the previous sketch. In the next video, we're going to continue learning about input devices and see how to connect keypads to the Arduino.
SunFounder is my go-to source for sensors, modules, and other parts for the Arduino and Raspberry Pi. They have a huge selection of STEM, robotics, and IoT kits, and lots of useful sensors and modules. Every product has an online tutorial with wiring diagrams and example code. They also offer free shipping on all orders, with no minimum. Give them a try at www.sunfounder.com next time you need to order some parts.